Well, welcome to this podcast by myself, Neil McWilliams, and Buff Cooper. You may know us both as lecturers at KCB. And of course, after a long wait, our students will be receiving their examination results, or may have already received their examination results. And Buff and I were chatting this morning ahead of the results being released. And we've known each other, Buff and I, for over 20 years. We were having a chat, and we both mentioned that many students have been in touch with us regarding what's next, what modules that students are going to study. So Buff then came up with the idea of this podcast today. But Buff, do you want to explain more?
Yeah, it's. I just thought it's such a tough decision, isn't it? With so many different factors involved. When people get their exam results, what do they do next? So I just thought this would be a great idea to help students understand, I suppose, the different options that they've got and the factors that come into play once they've got their results. So, hopefully, who knows, if the students like this, we may do some more podcasts.
Oh. Well, you're correct that, first of all, if a student's unsuccessful in the exam, their first thought might be to immediately resit. But I'm not sure that that's always the best decision. But anyway, maybe we can come back to that. Let's be more positive, because I know the effort that many of you put into your exams, and so I'm sure that for most of you it will be a good day having passed your exam. But we both just mentioned about some of those factors that determined what examination you might sit next, but and it's worth exploring some of those factors. And I think the first factor is what to study in the longer spring semester versus the short autumn semester. So that this spring semester, so the semester we're just entering now, is 16 weeks long, right? So that's 16 weeks of study time versus 12 weeks in the autumn semester, and that makes a significant difference.
Yeah, it does. I couldn't agree more, and it's not something that should be overlooked, because really the people should be considering modules that they find the toughest, and those may be it could be the finance module, for example, if you don't have an accounting or a finance background. It could be company law if you don't have a law background. But yes, the consideration here is the length of time that you have to study is a very important factor.
Yeah, but you just touched on there that the finance module, and for many people, or for many CGI students, they find that as their most difficult module, maybe because many students don't have a background in accounting and finance. And of course, in that shorter semester, trying to get to grips with the whole module, which of course in itself is a significantly large module. And what you've got in a 12-week module is 10 weeks of evening classes, followed by for us a revision class, and that's tough to fit in. It doesn't give much time around that. So this longer semester provides more time. And what KCB have actually done this semester is, for students that have not got a background in accounting and finance, we are putting on 2 Saturdays, so online live sessions for introduction to accounting and finance. So that's students without that background. That's going to be held on the 22nd of February and the 1st of March. It's the first time that we've offered it. And of course, as I mentioned, it works in this longer semester because we've got time to fit it in before the evening classes commence. The details of that are on the KCB website, but feel free to get in touch with Lauren, who can discuss. But both you're an accountant, but how valuable do you think that online sessions will be to students without the background in accountancy?
I think it's a great initiative, Neil, from KCB. Accounting is a difficult subject. It really is. And in terms of the CGI exam, it's an amalgamation of two old papers. So it's a very long-winded paper in terms of the content and the materials. And I think if you're going to give the students a head start by doing, I think it's these are 2 whole Saturdays, aren't they, Neil?
Yes, it is, Bob. Yeah.
Yeah. So, giving them that level of sort of introduction to some key accounting concepts is going to give them a huge advantage and a huge head start before they start studying them, the actual content itself of the syllabus. So, yeah, I mean, it's a huge step forward from KCB to provide this.
But I suppose the flip side, though, of course, is you could have studied accounting and finance before, and so that could be a good paper for you. It actually could be the law-related subjects that you find more challenging. So again, I would urge students to think about that longer semester to use for those difficult subjects. I mean, you could look at the national pass rates from the CGI for modules, and what we see in those Part 1 modules is, you're seeing the low pass rates. You're seeing a higher pass rate maybe in company law and company compliance than you see in, the corporate governance module, which is the module, I lecture. And, it's a challenging module. It's as the manual, the level of content in that is significant. So, my advice would be that if students are finding the law subject challenging, and maybe, if you struggle in coming to grips with CGI exams, then take the corporate governance module in this longer semester. But Buff, what are those other factors? What are the other factors for studying for the option of what to study next?
Yeah, I think, can I just echo that thing about the corporate governance? I mean, the pass rates from June 21 through to November 23 are in the 30s and the low 40s. So absolutely, if it's something that should definitely be tackled in that spring semester and not in the autumn one that you talked about earlier.
Buff, can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
You're right, but not in my class. They're not, Buff. I think you'll find my pass rates are significantly
high now. Of course.
Sorry, Buff. I didn't mean to jump in, but thank you.
Those pass rates, by the way, were national pass rates. No reflection on Neil's lectures at all. But no, it's a tough, isn't it? I think when you look at the pass rates across the board, I think, as you say, that there are ones that stand out that are much better in Part 1. But again, as we talked earlier on, it's all about your experiences and what, if you've done a law degree, if you've done an accounting or finance, degree, who knows? So all these things come into play. But in terms of other things, there are lots of students out there that have worked in study groups, which have provided, good support for these, for the individuals. So if these are working for you, try to keep them together and discuss within those groups what your next module, your next move is going to be. That's really important. The other big question is, in what order do you attempt the modules as you go away from Part 1 into Part 2? Once again, there are different pass rates. I think if you look at strategy and boardroom dynamics, they're in the sort of 80s and early 90s. So they have much higher pass rates than risk management, which has been on a decline session on session since November 21. It's gone down from 84% pass rate to 53. And that exam is getting ever increasingly difficult. So, in what order do you do Part 2? Well, I think, we discussed it this morning. For me, I wouldn't do risk management and strategy together. And the reason I wouldn't do that, risk management is a difficult subject to get your head around. and strategy is a huge manual with lots of models, lots of thinkers and techniques to learn. Although the pass rate is high, you've got to put a shift in to pass still. It's not an easy exam to pass, although the pass rate is relatively high. So that's my take on part two. The other thing about boardroom dynamics, I think boardroom dynamics, if you're going to take two exams together, boardroom dynamics should always be one of those. So boardroom dynamics and strategy, or boardroom dynamics and risk, but do not do strategy and risk together. I think that's far too challenging, even for the top end students.
Oh, thanks, Bob. I suppose, yeah, you raised some interesting points there about, attempting, two modules together. And, oh gosh, we know how challenging, that can be. I think both of us both see many of our, a number of our students, attempting that. I think it's particularly more difficult in that autumn of a shorter semester. I think we're seeing more students attempting them in the longer semester, but it does come back to that question of the study time. Students really need to consider their work, family, and other commitments, because it really is something that requires a significant amount of time. But when we are looking at that, but talk me through the combination of the two modules that you might be tempted for.
For part two, as I said before, I think I would be tempted to always do board dynamics first. I think there's a significant overlap with corporate governance. If you've done corporate governance and you got through that, and you got a bit of meetings experience, which hopefully most governance professionals would have some meetings experience. I think boardroom dynamics would be the natural choice to do. And if you were doing that in isolation, I'd probably do that in the autumn term, which is a shorter period. But if I was doing two in the spring that's coming up, I would do board dynamics as one, and I'd choose either strategy or risk management. Now, that choice of the two depends on, I suppose, your underlying sort of skills and abilities and knowledge that you've already got. But I certainly, it's a big commitment. Doing two exams is a huge commitment. I think those students that we've worked with, Neil, that you well know, that diligently turn up to every session. They do any homework that we set them, and they're always inquisitive and inquiring about certain aspects of the syllabus. And as you know, we've done some one-on-ones with students, haven't we, that have struggled. But I think realistically, it's a big ask. And if you're going to do two modules in part two, the semester to do it in is the spring one.
Yeah.
To try and do it in the autumn, you've got 10 weeks of sessions to get through. You've got a revision weekend. Now that revision weekend, because the timing of we've only got 12 weeks, it's naturally going to fall relatively close to the actual exam. And because of that, students, find it, difficult to take the stuff away from revision weekends and apply that, and also do their own personal study, which everybody needs to do an element of personal study. You can't just rely on, the lectures from KCB. I mean, they're fantastic, obviously, but there's an element of self-study needed here, and application. So I think if you're going to do two, do them in this semester coming up, the spring semester, and definitely choose board dynamics of one of the two that you're going to take.
Yeah, right. So, thanks, Bob. I suppose the other point is in that disappointing situation that a student may fail an exam, then that also raises that question, doesn't it, about whether a student is going to, resit that one exam, or whether they're going to attempt the resit and another exam. So, I think that's worth exploring, because for me, it depends on, what the reason was for failing that exam. And there's, of course, a couple of reasons. The first, was it, the student's exam strategy that let them down? So, did they run out of time? Didn't get to attempt that last question? Or maybe, it was more about how the student applied the knowledge to the scenario. So basically, they felt they'd got a good knowledge of this module, but weren't really able to, apply it. And if that's the case, then it could be a good option to undertake 2 modules, right? Because you feel okay about, your the knowledge, which is the key, resource, the key, what you need for that exam. And it could be about, developing your examination strategy, practicing. So there could be more time in to undertake the 2 modules. But if it is that, you were weak on that knowledge and that's what let you down in the exam, you might take a slightly different approach. So it could be that if you actually felt that you knew some knowledge, but but there are subjects that you feel are going to be more difficult, such as maybe that accounting module, then it could be worth deferring your resit to the shorter a semester, and tackling something more difficult now. If your knowledge was really weak and non-existent, then it could be that you take that now. But otherwise, I would definitely consider undertaking a new module now, in the longer semester, something more difficult, and resitting at a later module. Buff, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I think, if they failed, we get students that, excuse me, come back to us and say, oh, I've scored sort of mid 40s or, late 30s, and they clearly had some knowledge. You get to score, that many points in risk management. It's not a disaster. You're heading towards that pass mark. If it's just a case of exam technique and you just need, you self-studied, which I find a lot of guys that come to my classes that have self-studied before, we spend time with them on, writing style, exam technique, they fly through the exam. They just didn't know how to apply their knowledge to the actual they study in the exam. And, in those scenarios, I think if you fail for those reasons, there's a good reason to retake that. And another module, you've got the space there to do another module as well, as you mentioned. However, if you failed miserably, and you didn't really apply yourself, and it's a subject you didn't really enjoy, I would defer that until autumn. And the reason I would do that is because, we have had students that have failed resits, and it starts to become, a very grindy sort of difficult process to want to refocus for the 3rd time. So do something different in autumn where you've got a longer time period. Find another challenging subject. Maybe it's law, maybe it's accounting, who knows. Get your teeth into that, really knuckle down and pass that one, and then retake the one that you failed in the autumn semester. That would be my approach, and go back to it with a fresh mind, and then build on the knowledge that you had when in the session that you failed.
Cheers. Thanks, Buff. Now, of course, that's just Buff and I's views in, talking about it, this morning. But please, take your time to think through what's going to best work for you. But I hope that this webinar was able to help just in give you some things to think about. But of course, as I mentioned, we've already spoken to a number of students, and KCB is here to support all students, and irrespective of whether you've ever studied with us or even intend to study with us. We're always interested in speaking to students and helping you through that decision process. If you do want to arrange a call with myself, then please get in touch with Lauren at KCB, and we can schedule something. So we would look forward to speaking to you, and I really would look forward to helping you through that process. So that's all from me. I wish you all. I hope that if you've received your results, then I hope that they were you were successful. You all, any students that I come across at KCB, of course, deserve that, and I'd look forward to working with you. And a last word from you, Buff.
Yes, there's been lots and lots of students that we've worked with in the last semester who really, really put a shift in and deserve to pass. So I'm expecting great results tomorrow. I'm expecting to hear wonderful news. And as Neil's pointed out earlier on, for those of you who don't get the grade that you wanted, there's great resources and help here at KCB. So, get in touch, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.